her soul for her being our family historian for years, so that we are all able to know where we came from. And also I want to thank Ron, my cousin, who picked up the tab and has brought us to the present. We originally descended from John Chidsey. He spelled his name Chedsey, like they did in Old England. He came over on the good ship Hector in 1642. And I'll tell you, that wasn't the Princess Cruise Line. And we are so thankful that he made it and brought the Chidseys to America. Norman was my great-great-grandfather who lived up on, I believe, Laurel Road. 130. That's why my geek squad's in the background. He had 5 children. His son Truman was my great-grandfather. He lived on Gravel Pit Road. Right. Actually, my son just moved off the property that used to be Truman's home. He went to Alabama. He had 9 children, and the one was my grandfather, Grant Greenwood Chidsey. And the Greenwood came from his mother's maiden name. He was born on December 28, 1869. He attended the one-room schoolhouse near his home. And at 18, he bought 50 acres. He eventually purchased a total of 233 acres, which became the Shady Nook Jersey Farm. He married Bertha Sprague, who was from Beebeetown, which is a little tiny town on Market Road. Ooh, got that one right. He was in the maple sugar business for over 80 years, and people came all over to get his syrup, and it only cost $1 a gallon. Now, on a little side note, I was up at the Westside Market, and they had a gallon of pure maple syrup, $75. And I walked up to the little shop and I said, wow, $75. My dad used to give this stuff away. And I just walked away. He was also interested in Jersey cows, and he had many winners at the fairs. He was quite the politician. He was a Republican, Brunswick trustee and school board president, county commissioner twice, and he was the trustee of the United Brethren Mount Pleasant Church, which is still on the corner of Laurel and 130th, and I believe it's a Methodist church now. Grant and Bertha had 6 children: Albert, Alda, Bertha Viola, Myron, Amber, and Harold. Albert was the eldest, and he was not a farmer. He loved tinkering with motors. And he also had a trucking company in Cleveland. He moved away from the farm, but on the corner of Carpenter and Laurel, he had a magical garden. Everything that farmers do not plant. And I just remember going in there and getting lost and picking elderberries, and it was just a magical place. Albert married Aunt Edna, and she worked at the Revere Ware Pots and Pans, which was the aluminum pans with the copper bottoms. So all of Grant's children got a nice set of those Revere Ware pots and pans, and I still have one of my mother's. They last forever. Oh, they finally actually retired to Florida, but they came up to Ohio for all of our gatherings. And all of our gatherings were potlucks. So being from Florida, they would always bring the pickles and the olives and all the things that didn't need refrigerating. And when they arrived, it was like the king and queen came into the yard. They had a sob, which nobody ever heard of. And she was decked out to the nines and had her dark sunglasses on, and she was just fabulous. Next in line we have Alda. Alda was a school teacher, and she taught until she got married, and then back then you no longer could teach. So her and her husband, Uncle Elmer, had a chicken farm. And Alda would wash the eggs and candle them, make sure nobody's getting the bloody egg. And I remember my uncle stopping on his way to his egg route in town, and he always had a nasty old cigar that he never had a new cigar. And we lived around the corner. It always seemed like his cigar was just ready for the garbage. Okay. Next we have Bertha Viola, which we call Aunt Viola because I'm assuming they didn't want her confused with Grandma, or maybe she just liked Viola better. But she was a school teacher, and she and her husband Max lived on Weymouth Road. And Max was a farmer and also an electrician. Let's see. I'm skipping Myron because that's my favorite topic. So Amber they farmed in Litchfield. Her husband, Bryant, his last name was Bryant, and it's Harlan, thank you. Amber passed away when I was very young, so I really don't remember a whole lot about her except that she definitely had a fun yard. But she fell and hurt herself on the chest. She had fallen on a milk bucket. And she found a lump later on in the week and she fell on the milk bucket. Well, here she had cancer, and she died of cancer. But boy, when I got my little update, I got right to the hospital because I remember the stories about her. And then we have Harold. Harold was the only Chidsey that went into the service. So he was in World War II, across the pond. And when he came back, he married Leonore Saunders and moved to North Royalton. And he was a musician. And he was the band director for North Royalton and Brecksville. And I do believe he wrote their alma maters as well. We loved going to his house. He always had Thanksgiving. And there was sometimes probably 75 people there, but they managed to always have table and chairs for all, and we all could sit down as a humongous family and have dinner. Again, it's potluck, a little side note. So I was a young adult, and my father decided I was making scalloped potatoes for this little shindig we were going to. And I'm making them up, and they're not going right. And I kept calling my dad, it's not working out. I don't think I'm bringing them. And he says, just bring them, Carol, they'll be fine. So I set them in the line, and I'm coming through the line, and he's standing by my scalloped potatoes, and he didn't see me. And he's telling everybody, hey, take some of those scalloped potatoes, or Carol will never make them again. So I made them again. Let's see. Okay, on to my favorite topic, Myron Grant Chidsey. Grant being my grandfather's first name, being my father's middle name. He married Helen Fowle. Helen's father was in a band, And my father loved to dance. And there was a dance hall in Weymouth, and Mother's father was in the band, and my father was there. And they danced, and they started dating, and she lived in Richfield, my dad was in Brunswick, so he would go over on Sundays and help her with her homework. So some things never changed. My father also helped me with my homework. I could not grasp algebra, and he knew how to do it. So I'd ask him to help me, and then pretty soon I'd start crying, and then he would just finish it for me. And I'd get my homework. However, I was at school, and I got called up to the chalkboard and put my problem up. And Mrs. Mugridge, my teacher, said, "Carol, who helped you with your homework?" And I said, "Well, my father did." And she says, "Well, he's doing it the old way." And I says, "Well, I got the right answer." Back then, every class, you had a little carbon pack for your grade cards. And the grades would go through to the last board, but the comments didn't go through. So every grading period, she'd hand me my card and sing Christmas carols to me because she said it was a gift. And she always gave me a C. But at the end of the year, she wrote in the little comment section, "Loved having Carol in my class. Make sure she doesn't take any more math." My father was the one member of the family that really took to farming. And he continued with the maple syrup. He helped, it was my grandfather's, and then grandfather and dad, and then my dad took it over. And everybody at school wanted to be in our 5th grade class because during pioneer days, that was the bus trip to the Chidsey maple syrup production, and they all wanted to go. So it was pretty cool. We were pretty popular then. So my grandfather, Grant, gave my father his diploma at graduation because he was the president. Then when my sister Nancy graduated, my father was the president of the school board, and he gave my sister Nancy her diploma. So that was pretty cool. I have a picture here of my dad with his cow, Torino, Ohio State champion for the largest amount of butterfat in the, that's what jerseys were famous for. My dad was very active in social groups, and he also was a member of the minstrel show. I don't know if you all remember, they black-faced and had a little minstrel show, but one year, the Ku Klux Klan didn't think it was such a hot idea, and they put a stop to it, and then they started doing the showboat shows. My dad also had an interest in politics, but he ran for mayor, lost by 10 votes. He ran for county commissioner, didn't go so well. He was president of the fair board, where he excelled because he's a farmer. And here's a picture, this is Aunt Alda and Aunt Viola, and here's a picture of my parents for their 60th wedding anniversary. And we have pictures of all the maple sugar and different things, compliments of my brother Dave, which I really did mean to introduce my group before I started, so I will now. My cousin Ron, my cousin Owen, my sister Sally, my brother David, and also Sally's husband George, and Yvonne, who is my brother's friend. Now I'm going to go into the special 19, and also thank you to Ron, because we all have one. So first we have Jane. Jane was we had a lot of school teachers. Jane was a school teacher, and I won't give away their ages, that's not the way. Then we have Owen. His specialty was, I think he was the purchasing agent for Union Carbide.
Yes, I guess simply, yes.
Okay. And he was able to travel all over Europe for Union Carbide. Now the Bryantons, I'm gonna need my crew out there. Gary Bryanton, what was his specialty?
Attorney.
Gary was too? Oh,
Gary.
Gary.
okay.
You're thinking Alan.
Oh, Gary, yeah. Oh, I knew that one. Because I worked at PNC and he worked upstairs. And I didn't know that, but I went into the little cafeteria one day and I saw him standing there. And I walked up to him and I said, "Hi, Gary." I said, "I'm your cousin Carol." And he said, "Yes, I know who you are. You're the one that calls me every time somebody dies." So, right? I'm the glue here in this 19, I'm telling you. And I horned myself in. Ron and his brother Bob used to have breakfast with his father every Saturday. And I invited myself along. And then I would bring one sibling with me. And pretty soon we started having cousins breakfast, and it's great. Marcia was a school teacher. Alan, I just remember he golfed. I don't know.
Watch football.
Yeah, oh yeah, one time my mom unplugged the TV before everybody got there because she didn't want him watching football on Thanksgiving. Next is Betty. She was such a wonderful woman. She never had children, and I don't know why, because she would have been an awesome mom. And her students were her children, and she just loved teaching. Nancy, one of my sisters, her specialty was social butterfly. And she was a roller skater, semi-professional. She sewed costumes. She did drive school bus. Next is Joanna. She ran the school bus transportation in Burbank. Sally's specialty was running around, picking up items, whoever needed in the family, struggling with her 2 kids, driving to get car parts, keeping books. She was busy. Harleen was our activist. She loved to have a cause to take care of. Bob was a jeweler. Still is. And I was at work one day and this girl was going on and on about her beautiful ring that she had made. And I heard her say, "Oh, it was Bob Chidsey." And I said, "You're kidding." I said, "That's my cousin." She couldn't believe it. And Bob's wife, Diana, she was going to sew her wedding dress. So that was pretty cool. Ron was a school teacher, and he started his own company where he taught parenting skills. And one day I went to be his doorman to hand out his little flyers and everything, and the one thing that stuck in my mind on his little overhead board, it says it's okay to say no to $200 tennis shoes. And that was kind of the basis where who's going to get the upper hand. And he said that he really felt kind of funny accepting money because all he did was tell the parents what Grandpa would have told us. My brother Davis, his passion is turning a wrench and drag racing. Every weekend you'll find him at a drag racing place.
I object.
Overruled. Now, Don, I'm kind of fuzzy on as well, like he did. They kind of moved away and we didn't really keep up with the Bryantons as well as we should.
He was a singer.
Yeah,
And he's in a quartet.
Christian quartet.
Thank you. Next is me in line, Carol. My specialty is caregiving. And I ran my own daycare out of my home for 33 years. I took care of the neighbors when they got sick. I took care of my Aunt Alda. We had special phones between Marcia's house and my house that would just ring and ring and ring until I answered it. And I think after so many rings, it would go to the next phone number. But I was the closest, and I could run up and help her if Marcia was out doing errands or anything. Then I was thinking, man, 33 years, I didn't want to hold another baby. And I always made a promise to the parents when I took them in that I would stay with it until their child went to kindergarten. Because I knew that switching babysitters all the time wasn't a healthy thing. So I got it in my head that I was going to get a job in an office after sitting in my yard for 33 years with tank tops and short shorts. So I was up at the bowling alley, and I was telling my group that I thought I would get a computer and learn how to do some computer work, because I was going to look for a job. And there's a young lady sitting there, her name was Faith. How good was that? And she says, I can teach you how to run a computer. I said, cool. So I went over to her house twice. And she said, how would you like to work downtown? Great. Well, her daughter was a supervisor of the operations team at DNC. And she called her daughter and she says, how about giving Carol a job? She had asked me to babysit years before, and I said, no, I didn't have room, so it was kind of a touch-and-go situation. So she said, Carol's looking for a job. She said, well, Carol doesn't know how to do anything. And she said, that's the great part. You could teach her your way, and she doesn't know any of the better ways, so she'll just do it your way. So I got an interview, and I went out and bought a suit, and I went downtown, and I got the job. They told me that there was one lady that nobody could get along with, and if I could convince her that I should work there, they'd hire me. Well, they didn't know I had attorney friends and different, my dad had some pretty highfalutin people. I was comfortable around people like that. And her first question was, well, what if we send you up to the corporate lawyers to ask a question? And I said, well, they put their pants on one, will they get their time? Just like everybody else. And she loved me. And I did her territory because she finally found somebody she could get along with. And so I got my job. Nobody could believe it. Then I got really upset with the corporate attitude. And it was all about I ended up going to Brecksville because it was a better ride. And I got caught up in this production, and being the caregiver, I would go to the mailroom and the girl in the mailroom would have a problem or need some help, so I would help her. And I think I was told 3 minutes to the mailroom and back. Well, I never made it in 3 minutes because I was always helping somebody. So they kept calling me in and reprimanding me. So you got to get your work done this amount of time. And I said, I don't understand. My work's done at the end of the day. Well, it's not getting done when we want it done. Well, I couldn't change my ways, and I hate to admit it, but I got fired. So she pulls me in the room. She says, so I disappointed you, because she was actually my friend. She says, no, I disappointed you. And I said, no, you didn't. I says, I wanted to quit, but I'm not a quitter. You're doing me a favor. And I gave her a big hug, and she started crying. So she walked me out, and that was the end of that. So now I need another job, and my specialty is caregiving. So now I work for Homestead. It's a company that comes into the elderly's homes and keeps them safe so they can be home instead. And I love it. Next is Anna, my sister Anna. Her specialty was Driving anything. She took airplane lessons. She finished the class, but she never soloed. She could drive a semi, she could drive whatever you could throw at her. She was a school bus driver. So that was her specialty. Now, Janet. I know she likes to make candy.
Well, now she works for a candy store called All City Candy. But she's done a lot of different things, working downtown to Playhouse Square. Worked for Kohl's for many years.
So she's busy too.
Yeah.
Now Dean, I know he has his own landscaping company down in Georgia. I was hoping my sister Lori would be here by now. She's a school teacher as well.
She's in conferences, she said, but
Okay.
she's trying to get here, and she said she did her own math problems. So,
Nice. Well, that's why she's the teacher.
there you go. Hopefully she's on her way. We'll
And she
hope.
tried to teach me how to dance in 4th grade, and I've never danced ever since then.
Oh.
So we had 116 consecutive Chidsey reunions.
We missed one during the war.
That's correct.
I didn't miss it, I wasn't there. The family
Yes.
missed one.
The family that was there missed it. And hopefully we still get together once a year for Father's Day. And, you know, it's kind of dwindling. It used to be the Lyman family, who was one of Truman's children. He kind of settled into Medina. I'm sure you've seen Chidsey's Landscaping in Medina. And we had some of the Tibbetts family for a while, but it's kind of dwindled down. It's usually just the Grants that are there. So I guess, any questions?
Can I make a comment that the health of the 19 cousins
Yes.
is sort of amazing at our age, you know, that only one is gone.
Right. Yeah, the rest is alive and, well, we've all had our issues, but we worked through them. Now, Betty is, we miss Betty.
Carrie, you want to talk about the books? Tell them
Yes.
how we got that.
All right, well, this is all of the families combined. It is the Chidsey story at 1974. The original book was printed in 1972, and we all got one. I believe it was Harold and Ron's gift to us. We have just the Grant family. We have the Hal Chidsey story, which is Ron's father, amazing man. He was a lifelong resident of North Royalton. Bless you. Before his death, he decided to record in writing, with the encouragement of his family, many of the stories of his life that have been shared for decades. He was a music teacher for North Royalton and Brecksville, and author of their alma maters for both high schools. In this writing, he includes stories of his farm beginnings, his service in the U.S. Armed Forces, and family favorites. And this was a project between Ron and his father. This is another book of Grant's family, authored by Ron. He is a member of the 10th generation of the Chidseys. And this book was actually started over 40 years ago when Ron's parents and family hand-published the first volume.
Here, let me comment on those books. Those books are like work texts. They have spaces for you fill in if somebody's born or somebody dies or gets married. You fill in the names and the dates. So as the family grows or dwindles, you can put it in there and it'll keep track of it.
Well, that's about all I have. I actually talked longer than I thought I was going to. At first, I thought it was going to be like a 10-minute deal, so I'm blessed. Thank you so much.